She was told, "This lounge isn't for you," as if her first-class ticket didn't matter. Only her skin did. The room watched in silence, judgment thick in the air. What no one saw coming. Her family would own the entire airline by morning. But what happened next will leave you speechless. First, let's rewind. Tiana Maxwell had always been a quiet achiever, content to stay in the background, win science fairs, and build robots while others grabbed attention for louder victories. But this moment, her moment, had been years in the making. Her acceptance into the Columbia STEM Summer Scholars Program was more than just a line on her resume. It was a door creaking open to a future she'd dreamed of since the 3rd grade, when she'd read about Mae Jemison and scrawled, "I want to go to space," on the back of her math notebook. That's why her parents had gone all out. First-class flights, a suite in Manhattan, even a behind-the-scenes NASA tour next month. They didn't spoil her often, but they knew what this meant to her. When Tiana stepped into the lounge, her fingers tightened slightly on the strap of her carry-on, nerves fluttering like trapped moths in her stomach. But she reminded herself she belonged here. She had earned this seat, this trip, this quiet luxury. She had been invited into the room. What she hadn't prepared for was someone slamming the door in her face. The receptionist didn't even glance at the crisp boarding pass she offered. Her voice was coated in condescension, so thinly veiled it may as well have been see-through. "This lounge isn't for economy passengers." It hit like a slap, sharp, fast, public. For a split second, Tiana was too stunned to reply. She blinked, mentally retracing her steps, wondering if she'd walked into the wrong terminal. But no, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. "I'm flying first class," she said, voice measured, lips tightening at the edges. The woman didn't budge. Instead, she gestured dismissively, her smile hard and fake. "There's a food court just down the hall." The humiliation didn't settle all at once. It came in waves, the burning heat rising in her cheeks, the awareness of eyes on her back, the muffled chuckle from a man in a golf shirt who clearly found the moment amusing. Tiana froze, caught between the instinct to defend herself and the fear of making a scene. Her pride warred with her pain, and for a breathless second, she felt like she was shrinking, becoming invisible in a space designed to ignore girls like her. Vanessa's arrival was swift and unflinching. Her tone cut through the air like a blade. "Scan the ticket." The receptionist, suddenly flustered, obeyed. Her smile returned, this time lined with guilt. But Tiana had already stepped back, her posture rigid, arms crossed like a shield. She didn't take a seat inside the lounge. She couldn't, not with the laughter still echoing in her mind. She found a bench outside, near the oversized windows, and watched planes taxi across the runway, blinking back tears she didn't want her parents to see. Marcus stood behind her, silent. But his silence wasn't passive. It was electric. Beneath it, something moved, coiled and calculating. He placed a hand on her shoulder, warm and steady. Tiana didn't know it yet, but the moment the receptionist dismissed her, something massive had shifted, not just in her heart, but in the world that would soon rise to meet her. The hotel suite on the 30th floor of Manhattan's glassy skyline should have felt like a reward. The floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in gold as the sun dipped behind the buildings, and the air still carried the celebratory scent of vanilla frosting and helium balloons. But none of that could touch the heaviness hanging over the room, an invisible fog of injustice that dulled every shine and muted every cheer. Tiana sat at the edge of the couch, legs tucked beneath her, picking at the frosting of her slice of cake with a silver fork. Her curls were pulled into a loose bun, and her NASA hoodie, once a proud emblem, now looked like a discarded hope. Her voice broke the silence with the softness of something fragile. "It wasn't even about the seat," she murmured, the words barely above a whisper. "It's like I didn't belong. Not because of my ticket. Because of me. Vanessa turned from the window, arms crossed, jaw clenched tight enough to tremble. She had heard versions of that sentiment before, spoken quietly in hallways after board meetings, felt during elevator rides when she was the only woman, the only black person, the only one who didn't belong by default. She sat beside Tiana, laying a hand gently over hers. "That woman didn't see your ticket," she said, her voice steady but edged with fury. "She saw your skin before she saw your name." Marcus remained near the suite's desk, his phone resting face down, screen dark. His stillness wasn't idle. It was focused. He had built his career on systems, networks of logic and precision, algorithms that quietly shaped the movements of jets, cargo, and data across continents. His name wasn't known in public. That was deliberate. Influence, he believed, worked best when invisible. But the woman at the airport had made one critical miscalculation. She had humiliated his daughter in the one place he understood more intimately than anything: the skies. He picked up the phone, scrolled through a short list of trusted contacts, and tapped the one labeled Friedman. "Marcus?" The voice on the other end greeted warmly. "Been a while." "I need a fast buy-in," Marcus said without preamble. "Aviation, something scalable, something poetic." There was a pause. Then, "Altitude Air. Just pulled out myself. Numbers are soft, but structure's clean. Regional, 15 hubs. You want it?" "I'll take all of it," Marcus replied. "Send the paperwork tonight." He ended the call and looked over at Tiana. She didn't know the conversation he'd just had, but something in his gaze, a rare steeliness behind his usually calm eyes, made her lift her head slightly. He didn't speak of revenge. He didn't have to. His silence wasn't the silence of defeat. It was strategy. The kind of silence that lives just before a thunderclap. It didn't unfold with fireworks or headlines screaming across television screens. It moved like a tide. Quiet, deliberate, undeniable. Within 24 hours of the call to Leo, Marcus Maxwell had orchestrated what insiders would later call one of the boldest overnight takeovers in aviation history. Altitude Air, once considered a mid-tier regional player barely keeping its wings level, became property of Maxwell Holdings. The acquisition was clean, decisive, surgical. Marcus had made his fortune designing systems that could predict airline congestion down to the minute. Now he used that same precision to dismantle and rebuild an airline from the inside out. He renamed it without hesitation, Max Air. Not for ego, but for clarity. He wanted his daughter's last name on the boarding pass, on the jet tail, on the lounge entrance where someone like her would never again be questioned. The following morning, tech blogs scrambled to catch up. Business outlets pushed out headlines layered with curiosity and veiled discomfort. "Unknown tech mogul buys airline overnight, rebrands under family name." Others weren't so subtle. "Is this the first step in big tech owning the skies?" But none of them had the story. Not really. At the breakfast table, sunlight catching the edges of her spoon, Tiana scrolled through the article with disbelief stitched across her face. Her mouth parted slightly, brows knitting. "Wait, you bought the whole airline?" Marcus looked up from his coffee, expression unreadable except for the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth. "Some lounges just aren't for us," he said, voice calm as always. "So we make new ones." By week's end, every Altitude Air lounge across North America had undergone a swift transformation. Gone were the generic blues and sterile chrome finishes. In their place, warm woods, honey-lit seating areas, curated bookshelves featuring authors from every culture, and walls wrapped in art from Black, Indigenous, and other underrepresented artists. Tiana's favorite quote, one she had once scribbled on her notebook cover, was now etched in brushed steel behind every reception desk. Max Air lounges, built for everyone who belongs anywhere. But aesthetics were only surface. The deeper revolution stirred behind the counters. Marcus issued a mandate that left little room for ambiguity. Every customer-facing employee would complete a rigorous week-long inclusivity and bias training, not optional, not negotiable. The old way of doing things, assumptions, glances, gatekeeping, would be purged like rust from an engine. And the woman from the lounge, she didn't make it past day one. 3 weeks had passed, but when Tiana stepped back into the airport, the air felt different. Lighter, charged, as though the building itself had exhaled an old breath and drawn in something new. She wasn't there as a passenger this time. She arrived as a keynote speaker, a symbol, and officially the Director of Youth Innovation Programs for Max Air, a title still so fresh on her badge that it shimmered under the terminal lights like a sunrise just beginning. The Max Air lounge was unrecognizable from the cold corridor she had once been denied entry to. Gone were the sterile beige walls and generic wall clocks. In their place, vibrant murals by artists whose work had never hung in airports before, depicting sky and ambition through the lens of Black, brown, and indigenous stories. Along the far wall, a timeline traced the history of underrepresented figures in aviation, from Bessie Coleman to astronaut Jeanette Epps, names that once floated in the margins now placed boldly at the center. The staff greeted her with sincerity, not out of obligation, but out of recognition, not as the boss's daughter, but as a woman walking in purpose. That's when she saw him, the man in the golf polo. He stood near the espresso bar, stirring a cup with too much focus. His eyes darted up, caught hers. He recognized her instantly. No laugh this time. No smug nod. Just a glance. 1 part apology, 2 parts disbelief, as his gaze flicked from her face to the banner behind her. Maxwell Family hosts launch of Fly Forward Initiative, diversifying the future of flight. Tiana didn't flinch. She didn't smirk. She didn't stop. She simply walked past him, her steps precise, her head held higher than it had ever been. On her chest, the silver badge gleamed. Director of Youth Innovation Programs, Max Air. She stood at the podium moments later, poised before a crowd of journalists, industry leaders, and dozens of young students wearing lanyards with the Max Air logo. Her voice was steady, but her words carried weight. "This isn't just about planes," she said. "It's about possibility. It's about who gets to feel welcome at the gate, who gets called to the cockpit, who gets handed the sky." That image, her silhouette beside a private jet, framed by bold print on Forbes Teens, was more than a headline. It was a door being held open, and now every Max Air flight closed with the same message, broadcast from thousands of feet above. Welcome aboard. At Max Air, everyone belongs. No longer a dream. Now, a declaration, written in sky, spoken into legacy.